Common Knowledge Podcast, just a man doing the best he can with what he got. And let me start this segment with saying something important. What I'm about to say is my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm just a guy talking on the internet, trying to make sense of a bunch of things that are happening at the same time. But sometimes when a lot of separate events are stacking up, you begin to wonder if they're really separate at all. And that's an uncomfortable space where conspiracy theories live. Now, let's be honest, we all love conspiracy theories. We just don't like finding out they're not true. Conspiracy theories can absolutely be wrong, and most times they are. But the existence of fake conspiracy theories does not mean conspiracies themselves are impossible. Like, history is full of examples where what started as a crazy theory eventually turned out to be true. Watergate was a conspiracy. COINTELPRO was a conspiracy. The Tuskegee experiments were a conspiracy. At first, people said those things were ridiculous until they weren't. And the key word in all this is something people on the internet seem to have forgotten the meaning of. And that's unsubstantiated. Unsubstantiated does not mean false. It means not yet proven. Every claim on earth starts out unsubstantiated. If someone calls the police and say, Marcus is beating his wife, that's an unsubstantiated claim. It doesn't mean I did it. But if the police hear screaming from my house every day and the neighbors see bruises on my wife, then that's enough circumstantial evidence to justify investigating. That's how evidence works. You investigate patterns. You investigate smoke, because when there's smoke, sometimes there's fire. Right now, we're watching a perfect example of people misunderstanding that concept. Recently, additional documents related to Jeffrey Epstein were released by the Department of Justice. Now, those documents included uncorroborated accusations involving President Donald Trump, based on FBI interviews, notes from a woman who alleged abuse decades ago. Now, important point here. These allegations are unverified. No charges were filed. But again, unverified does not automatically equal false. It means they were never proven. Yet what frustrates me is watching people who move the goalposts. For years, everyone said, release the Epstein files. Now the documents are coming out, and suddenly the argument is, well, those claims are unsubstantiated, so they shouldn't count. That's not how investigations work. If 1,000 people independently make claims about abuse involving the same network of powerful individuals, that doesn't prove guilt, but it absolutely justifies an investigation. Especially when there's already documented relationships between some of the individuals and Epstein. Some individuals being Donald J. Trump. And meanwhile, it seems like a war is happening just to distract us from the fact that an investigation is not going on into those files. While all this is unfolding politically, something else is happening globally. Like, the United States and Israel have been conducting military operations against Iran. And one of the most disturbing incidents so far involve a girls' school in Iran. Now, reports indicate that during the first day of the bombing campaign, a strike destroyed a girls' school, killing more than 160 people, many of them children. Satellite imagery and investigative reporting suggest that the strike was carried out by U.S. forces. Now, the U.S. government says an investigation is ongoing and denies intentionally targeting civilians. Doesn't mean it didn't target them, but intentionally targeting civilians. Just a side note, man, like that's always the rationale for Americans and Israelis bombing civilians. Is always, well, hey man, they were hiding terrorists in those schools. That's always the excuse. But that's neither here nor there. The United Nations has called for an independent investigation, noting that schools are protected civilian infrastructures under international law. Now, here's where nuance becomes important. Like, two things can be true at the same time. Iran's government is an authoritarian regime with its own history of human rights abuse. Not sticking up for those guys. But bombing a school full of children is wrong. Those two ideas are not mutually exclusive. Just like I love America, but I still can criticize the American government. Love America. Fuck the Trump administration. I support Jewish people. Love my Jewish people. But I can criticize Benjamin Netanyahu's government in Israel. Fuck Benjamin Netanyahu. Fuck that guy. I can respect Muslim communities and still condemn an authoritarian leader in Iran. Like, nuance is not betrayal, it's just honesty. But there's another uncomfortable truth people are avoiding talking about. The same countries that condemn violence are often the biggest suppliers of weapons in the world. The United States have been the largest arms exporters globally for decades, supplying weapons to allies and partners across multiple regions. That means American weapons frequently show up in conflicts on multiple sides of geopolitical struggles. And that's happening now. Israel and Iran are using the same weapons from the same country, some of them just more up to date, all sold by us. And that creates a situation where the global arms trade itself becomes part of the machinery of war. And let's talk about like this weird Israeli-US relationship, because that's the elephant in the room that nobody really wants to talk about. There's a complicated relationship between us, the United States and Israel. The U.S. has provided Israel with tens of billions of dollars in military aid over the decades, making it one of the closest security partners in our coffer of countries. You can say it's the closest security partnership in the world. That alliance shapes foreign policy decisions in the Middle East. Sometimes those decisions are about shared security interests, and sometimes they're about regional strategy. And sometimes they raise serious questions about how much influence allied governments have on one another's actions. Like, none of that automatically proves corruption or conspiracy, but it does show interconnected powers can be deadly, because the rationale, which keeps on changing, for America doing this strike on Iran was Israel was gonna do this strike. Last time I checked, we are two separate countries. Like, Israel's policy should not dictate Americans' policies. And you're kind of feeding into that whole anti-Semitic trope of Jews ruling the world secretly by saying, hey man, well, the Jewish people's gonna do it. What can we do? Our hands are tied. You are your own regime. Never should the rationale for bombing another country be, well, another country told us to do it. Who the hell are we? I thought we was America. And let me just make something personally clear. I served in the U.S. Army. That puts me in a small minority of Americans, like roughly 1% of the population that has served in the military. So when politicians talk casually about war, when people online cheer about bombing campaigns, I take it differently. Because the people making those decisions usually aren't the ones that have to go fight. And when the people cheering the loudest usually aren't the ones putting on the uniform. You get a lot of saber rattling and a lot of willingness to go seeing other people to go die for you. Like when I signed that contract, I understood what my job was. The job of a soldier is violence. That's the job you're signing up for. You're signing up for violence. But what I always hope for, and what every soldier deserves, is that the people sending them into danger have actually thought through why they are doing this. That is a major reason why I got the Army during George W. Bush. I feel like there was no plan, man. There was no rhyme or reason. And we're right back there. Before you send your young men and women out to die, there needs to be a debate. There needs to be clear reason. There needs to be a plan, not political theater. So when I step back and look at the moment we're in, I see explosive allegations resurfacing in the Epstein case. I see political fights over transparency, escalating military conflict with Iran, civilian casualties, and global tensions rising. Are all those things connected? Maybe, maybe not. But when powerful people are under pressure, history shows they often try to change the subject. Like political science even researched that. Like most people in power will always try to divert attention from scandals by changing the news cycles. And again, that doesn't prove anything, but it does raise questions. And what am I trying to say? Let me go ahead and wrap this up. You don't have to believe in every conspiracy theory. You shouldn't. But you also shouldn't dismiss questions just because they're uncomfortable. Because sometimes the truth starts out sounding crazy or like a conspiracy. And sometimes the biggest mistake a society can make is deciding not to investigate. Not because there's no evidence, but because the evidence is inconvenient. And remember, man, unsubstantiated doesn't mean false. It just means the story isn't finished. And let me go ahead and outright and say it. If you got enough evidence to investigate Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, then goddamn it, you got enough to investigate Donald Trump.